Welcome back for the love of food. What we're making today is we are making fish chowder. So we're going to start off just by making basically the same way we're going to use in clam chowder, but we're going to use fish today. So what I've started off is I have a cast iron pot. I have a 1/4 cup of butter, and I'm going to be adding approximately 3 to 3.5 slices of bacon. You want your bacon really finely chopped, as close as you can get it, and to do that, you want to freeze your bacon. So if you take, 3 slices, and you lay it down on a piece of saran wrap or a piece of parchment/wax paper, you just stick it in the top of your freezer for about 10 to 15 minutes. You'll be able to slice it nice and thin and cube it up. If you tend to try to cut bacon in its already defrosted state, you risk the chance of cutting yourself because it's very greasy and slippery, and you're not going to get those nice fine cuts that you want. So, we have our butter, and we're going to add our 3 cut up pieces of bacon. There's our half there. So we're going to render this down nice and good until the bacon is fully cooked, and then we're going to add our onion, which is 1 white onion finely chopped, and then 2 to 2.5 sticks of celery. I think I just threw 3 in there, but we'll see how much we need, and we're going to cook that down after. Alright, so our bacon is just about cooked. It's nice and brown, but we want to make sure that the bottom is not burnt. Anytime that you're making a chowder, as soon as you realize something is burnt, you have to immediately get it off that pan, and do not try to scrape the bottom because you will burn your chowder and it'll be no good. So we're going to add in our 1 onion now, and that is finely chopped. And we're going to add our 3 stalks of celery in. And cook that off for about another 3 or 4 minutes. And while that's cooking, what we're going to do is we're going to add in about a teaspoon of garlic. Get that mixed in. And then don't forget to add your salt and pepper while you're cooking. Add a nice generous amount of cracked black pepper. And I'm just going to do a little bit of salt, just because the bacon already has salt in it, and we can adjust the salt as needed. So I'm going to let this cook for about another minute or 2, and then what we're going to do is add a little bit more butter, and then our flour. Alright, so I've added another 1/4 cup of butter. And what this is going to do, this is going to kind of melt down, and then we're going to turn the heat to low, and then add in the flour mixture to make a roux. So I'll show you how to add that flour there. Okay, so we're just going to sprinkle in some flour, probably about a 1/2 cup here. You want to make sure to get this nice and mixed together. You want it real thick, but not thick to where you can't, it's not pliable. It's just about good there. Now just a little bit more in. So maybe all in all, maybe a little over 1/2 cup. You want to make sure to turn this down to low, and what this is going to do, this is going to give us our base and thickness for the chowder part. So what we have in here, reminder, is the bacon, butter, celery, onions, and garlic. And what we're doing right now is we are cooking the flour out of the roux mixture, so that way we don't taste flour in our soup. Cook it on low heat for about 5 minutes, constantly flatten it out, and turning it. You don't want to ever let it sit. Then we'll start to add our cream and everything else, and our fish at the end. And while we're cooking this down, I'm going to pan out so you can kind of see. I have another pot going with diced potatoes, and I did about 3 Idaho potatoes, just sliced and diced in some water, and we got those cooking because we're just going to parboil these. If we wanted to make this chowder over the course of the whole day, we certainly could just put the uncooked potatoes in the chowder and let them cook that way. But I have other stuff to cook today, so I'm going to parboil them, not to the point where they're done, so they still hold their consistency and still kind of firm, and then the last couple hours I'll let them finish off. So now we're going to get ready to start adding some of our liquids. So we are making chowder. So every base for chowder, you can either use lobster stock or clam juice. And for this purpose today, I'm using a little bit of both. So I'm using one 8-ounce bottle of clam juice, and then I have some lobster stock that I actually have defrosted, and we'll use probably about another cup of that. So you want to make sure is move your utensil over from a spatula now to a whisk. You want to turn your heat up to about medium, and what you're going to do is you're going to add your liquid and stir. And it's still going to become real thick until we add our milk and our cream in a little bit. But what we want to do is we want to start whisked up and mixing some of this liquid with this roux. We'll go ahead and mix this for a second. Alright, so now we're going to start adding in our cream. And we got about 2 cups, but I'm just going to go real slow and kind of look at the consistency. So I'm going to do probably the first half cup, mix it in. Anytime you're adding liquid to something that already has a thick base, you want to add it gradually so that way you don't over thin your stew or chowder in this case, but you want to go at a nice smooth thickness. And as this continues to cook, it'll get a little thicker as well. We'll add in more here. And the last cup. So we can see the consistency. I can feel it as well. It is still thick, but I'm going to let that cook for a little bit, and then add in the potatoes and our fish. And I'll show you what we're using for our fish today. So our seafood department at our local store had haddock on sale. I don't know, I think it was like $9.99 a pound. But when the folks at the seafood department pare the fillets, the haddock fillets, they trim them down. And when they're trimmed down, they have pieces about this big, not enough for, a nice fillet, but they have pieces that big that are called stew pieces for meat. So I actually took a pound of that, which I got a whole pound for $2.50, cut it down into smaller pieces, smaller bite-sized pieces, and that's what we're going to use for our chowder. So your chowder can be any type you want. It can be a fish chowder, it can be a clam chowder. If you don't eat seafood, you can, put some sort of other meat in there and call it however you like. But the base of the chowder is starting with the bacon, celery, onions, and garlic with the cream, and then from there you make it into whatever you want, but that's a simple base. So we're going to strain our potatoes, add them in, and then add in our fish. Okay, so we've added our potatoes, and now we're going to add a pound of this fish. Give this a nice mix together. If you wanted, you could throw a little bit more seasoning in here. You could throw in some thyme, or simply throw in 1 bay leaf, which I think I'm going to do now. But basically, you're just going to keep this on low now, and just cook that for about a good hour, hour and a half. Then we'll come back, taste it, and see what it needs. Alright, so we have our thyme, fresh thyme. In here we have our 1 bay leaf in here, as you can see. So it's been about an hour, and I think I'm going to add a little bit more cream to this. However, once you add more cream, then you have to taste it again after a half hour, because you want to make sure that your chowder doesn't taste like cream. You still have that really good fish taste. If you don't, you might want to add a little bit more clam juice. But basically, you can see the consistency of the chowder is thick. It's coating the spoon. So this is a good consistency, but there's a lot of meat and not a lot of broth. So I'm going to add just a little bit more heavy cream